The first item of business is to decide whether to take item 5 in private. Is the committee content to take this item in private?
Yes.
And our agenda item number 2, we're considering instruments subject to the affirmative procedure. Issues have been raised on the draft Hate Crime and Public Order Scotland Act 2021, characteristic of sex, amendment and transitional provisions, regulations 2026. The purpose of this instrument is to add the characteristic of sex to the list of characteristics currently provided for by the 2021 Act. The instrument also inserts interpretive provision for the term sex. In correspondence with the Scottish Government, published alongside the papers for this meeting, the committee asked about the transitional provisions in the instrument. The committee notes that the transitional provisions were not included in the proposed draft of the instrument, which was considered by the committee on the 16th of September 2025. Transitional provisions can be necessary when one legislative system ends and another begins. They make provision to specifically address those cases that straddle the transition. Amongst other questions, the committee asked why the provisions are necessary, given the instrument already, through the commencement provision, limits the application of the regulations to after the 5th of April 2027. The Scottish Government acknowledges in its response that there is no old law regarding sex-based prejudice and states that the situation it is seeking to address is to make clear that actions of conduct that took place prior to the commencement of the provisions will not fall within the scope of the new offences. The committee sought further clarification on whether this provision might have an unintended effect on the application of sections 1 and 4 of the Hate Crime and Public Order Act, as they currently apply in respect of all other characteristics. The Scottish Government responded that the instrument cannot have any legal impact on sections 1 and 4 for the purposes of those characteristics. The committee accepts this response, but considers that the provisions, as currently drafted, are unclear and also unnecessary. The committee considers that transitional provisions should only be used where necessary to address genuinely transition scenarios. As such, does the committee wish to draw the instrument to the attention of the Parliament on reporting ground G, on the basis that it appears to be an unusual or expected use of the power conferred by the parent statute to make transitional provision, as it is not clear that the transitional provisions perform a transitional function?
Yes.
And does the committee wish to note that the Scottish Government intends to revise the policy note to correct an erroneous assertion in relation to the transitional provision?
Yes.
Separately, the committee notes the Scottish Government's statements in the explanatory and policy notes that the policy behind the interpretive provision added in respect of the characteristic of sex is to achieve equivalence with the meaning of Sex and the Equality Act 2010 as determined by the Supreme Court. The committee also notes that the power to make interpretive provision through this instrument is limited to making such provision in respect of the characteristic of sex, and it does not allow for, more generally, the modification of other definitions in the 2021 Act. However, the committee notes that the fact that there now exists a definition for biological sex in this location might cause uncertainty as to how the term sex is to be interpreted in relation to the other characteristics in the absence of an equivalent or alternative definition. Does the committee wish to suggest that the lead committee considers whether further amendment of the Parent Act is required in consequence of this instrument in respect of other references to the term sex?
Yes.
Yes.
Also, under this agenda item, no reporting grounds have been engaged on the relayed draft investigation and commencement of Repair Scotland Regulations 2026, the draft First Tier Tribunal for Scotland, Local Taxation Chamber and Upper Tribunal for Scotland, Composition and Rules of Procedure, Miscellaneous Amendment Regulations 2026, the draft Scottish Elections Representation and Reform Act 2025, Consequential Provision Regulations 2026, and the draft First Tier Tribunal for Scotland, Allocation of Functions, the Local Taxation Chamber, Regulations 2026. Is the committee content that no reporting grounds are engaged on these instruments?
Yeah.
In relation to the investigation and commencement of repair regulations, does the committee wish to note that the original draft of the instrument was withdrawn and the present version relayed following questions raised by the committee with the Scottish Government?
Yes.
Under agenda item number 3, considering instruments subject to the negative procedure in relation to SSIs 2026, 42, 43, 47, 48, 49, 52, 54, 56, 57, 58, 61, 63 and 64. In relation to SSI 2026-42, does the committee wish to note that it would be helpful if if the approach to rounding of the savings credit disregards was set out in the policy note to explain the difference between the figures and also the stated percentage increase?
Yes.
Yep.
Is the committee content that no reporting grounds are engaged?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. And under agenda item number 4, we are considering an instrument not subject to any parliamentary procedure in relation to SSI 2026-53. Is the committee content that no reporting grounds are engaged?
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you. That now concludes the public part of the meeting, and I'll move the committee into private.